how many people I'd said that to until I told people that my book was being published. And so many people, some of whom I really hadn't seen since school days from years and years and years ago, said, oh, you always wanted to write a book. So I always wanted to, but I didn't do anything properly about it until I was in my 40s, well into my 40s. So yeah, long time.
You didn't study anything like literature at, did you do literature A-levels or anything like that? Or?
I did English A-level, and I loved it. And yeah, it was my favourite subject, English, and writing always has been. But when I left school and I was looking at doing something at university, I don't think I really knew that there was anything like creative writing. I didn't really have that knowledge, and I wasn't using the internet, so I didn't know what was available. So I just did what I thought I would be quite good at. So I went into psychology, and I kind of left. I always loved writing, and I've always kept diaries and journals and things like that, and written letters. I've been through boxes and found like loads of old letters from friends, some of whom are here. Like Lisa Hasler wrote some hilarious letters to me, and I found them recently. But yeah, so I just got into psychology, and I worked in that area for years. Yeah.
Yes, I think we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a bit, because you, the character of Faye is, she's obviously got a similar job to the one you had. You've stopped working now for RNIB, haven't you?
Yeah, I only worked at RNIB for 5 years, but it was the best job I ever had. It was so interesting, and it really, it was something that I really used my degree for, and yeah, I loved it. So Faye had my job in the book.
Yeah. And when did you actually finish this, the final draft of this book? Was it, how long ago?
Oh God, I think I finished it in 2018. What are we in now? 2021. Yeah, so I finished it in 2018, and I started submitting it to agents in October 2018, and didn't get picked up until February 2019. So Simon and Schuster, I think I made the deal in April 2019. And I have said somewhere that the time it took to get from the deal to the publication date is the gestation period of an elephant. So you can grow an entire elephant from scratch from the time it takes to go from, you know, getting a publishing deal to it going to the shelves. That's when the book's already written. So it's a long time.
Now I know there's a bit of a story behind this. The fact is you hadn't been able to find a publisher. You were sort of a bit downhearted about it, but then something happened. It
was an agent. Yeah. So I had Space Hopper, and I was sending it out to agents, and I started sending it out in about October. And just before I was sending it out, so she's watching. So my ex-husband's fiance, Sarah, she is downstairs because they're in the same bubble, and she asked if she could read it. I said, I won't tell anyone, I won't show anyone. And she read it, and she said she liked it. And then I went ahead and sent it off to lots and lots of agents, and I got rejection after rejection. Oh my God, by December, I was so ground down. I just gave up, and I put it away, and I was really upset about it, and I didn't want to write anymore, and I just tried to get over it. That was December. And then in February, Sarah sent me a message saying, I just read a book that makes me feel a bit like Space Hopper did. You know, there's a mother-daughter relationship, there's a strong 70s vibe. It's not the same, but it made me feel the same. And the next day I was in Waterstones, and I picked up that book, and I looked in the back just to see if the agent was mentioned, and she was, and it was Judith Murray. And I thought, right, I'll send it out to one more agent. And I sent it to Judith Murray, and that's when it all sort of kicked off. Judith got back in touch within a week or so, or two, wanted the rest of the manuscript. And so thank you, Sarah, downstairs in my living room, drinking champagne and cheersing it. I wouldn't be here right now, really, if it wasn't for her. So I'm very grateful. It was lovely twist of fate.
that is an extraordinary story. It's a wonderful way. It's almost like, having been rejected by so many, it's almost like a Beatles moment, isn't it? So you're going to go on to massive things from now on.
Oh yeah, I'm just like the Beatles. I'm really thanks for that.
So it's such a clever concept, and I think you've obviously been through the mill with this particular one. But you must have a range of other books on the cutting room floor, or ideas, or anything like that. Is that a case? Are you kind of a million different ideas that you toyed with? Why was this one the one that you really threw yourself at?
Well, I did write a book before Space Hopper. I think just to see if I could, because I'd wanted to write a novel. I just really wanted to see if I could write one and finish one, because it's quite an undertaking, and it's hard just to finish a novel. So, I applaud anyone really who's written one, even if it's crap. Actually, just to get to the end is quite an achievement. It's quite a horrible thing to have to do, write a whole book. So I wrote it and I sent it to a few agents, and I thought, my heart isn't really in this. But then I had this idea for Space Hopper, and I felt straight away that it was a better idea, and something a little more poignant. And I just wanted to write this story about a woman who lost a mother when she was a child and had a chance to meet up with her again back in the 1970s, but as an adult, and to properly get to know her, not be kind of hidden or invisible or anything like that.
So did it come as a fully formed idea?
No.
Or there were a series of changes and re-edits and new thoughts through the process?
There weren't a series of changes. I didn't really know where it was going to go. I only knew that I wanted her to have this life that was a life that she loved. So, she loves her husband and her job and her friends and her kids, and everything's fine, except that she carries this sadness with her, and just got an opportunity to actually go back in time. I can't remember what you asked now. What question did you ask?
Did it come as a fully formed idea?
Oh no, right. So that's all I wanted. I just wanted her to be able to go back. And so I don't know if you've heard this quote by an author called Dr. O. It's such a good quote, and it gets repeated a lot by authors. But he says that when you write a novel, it's like driving your car home at night in the dark with your headlights on. You can only see as far as your headlights, but you can get all the way home that way. And that was what it was like with Space Hopper. I knew what I wanted to write for the next little bit, but I didn't know the ending. Now, Vivian James, who you mentioned earlier, who's here tonight, I went round to her house one day when I was about 2/3 of the way through the book, and she was with her daughter Megan, who's a teenager, and they asked me what my story was about. So I started telling them, and I was a bit worried about boring them. So I just told them a little bit, and then they said, go on, go on, go on. So I carried on, and they were like, well, what next? And I was like, I don't know what next. I just don't know what next. But on the drive home, I thought, oh God, wouldn't it be great if, and obviously I don't want to give the ending away, but that I only knew what the ending was when I was sort of well over the halfway point. And yeah, so I don't know if I'd be able to do that now. When I plan a book now, I roughly know what the ending is. Otherwise it's too scary.
Gosh, wow. Okay. And so the use of the space hopper and the beautiful roller skates, they're all very clever linked devices. Are they throwbacks to your own childhood? Have you got sort of links with these particular objects? What was your childhood like?
Well, I had, so I was born in 72, and so I was born, around the same sort of time. The skates that are on the front, I know they're red, but they're very much like these skates here. Those skates aren't really mentioned in the book. In the book, in the 1970s, little Faye, young Faye, gets the metal skates that you strap onto your shoes that really make like loads of noise. They've got metal wheels on them, and those are the skates that I had. And I did have a space hopper. I didn't realise that was quite a privileged thing, but quite a few people have said, I really wished I had a space hopper and I never had one, as if I was a rich kid or something. I wasn't, but I did have a space hopper. So pretty much all the things in the book, all the toys and everything that's mentioned, I either had or I really, really wanted to have. I think a Major Morgan is mentioned, and I really wanted one of those, but I never got one.
I'm just a smidge older than you, and I had a space hopper.
Get away! No, you're not.
But no, say again.
I said no, you're not. I was doing the old, casual.
Oh, I see. And I had
you had a space hopper, or you didn't?
I had a space hopper, yeah, and
okay.
but I had no idea they came in boxes. You know, I don't want to suddenly untangle the entire basis to your book. And I thought,
no, don't.
But no, I had Tonka toys. Tonka toys was my thing.
Oh yeah, they have boxes, but they're too small. I couldn't have used a Tonka box.
You couldn't climb in a Tonka toy box. No, absolutely.
No. That's a whole other story.
It is, yeah. So, I suppose the question of how similar is Faye to yourself in those terms. I know as a child there's a lot of similarities. As an adult there is as well, I suppose, is there?
Well, I'm a bit worried about answering this because in quite a lot of the reviews, people find Faye quite irritating.
Oh.
And I think I'm quite a lot like Faye. So when I've read reviews and they said I really liked it, even though I found Faye really irritating, I think that's me. She is like me in a lot of respects, and I think that came about just naturally because I wrote it in the first person. So Faye tells it in the first person because it's confessional, because she can't tell anyone this crazy story because no one will believe her. And that's why I told it in the first person, because she's telling the reader until she finds Louis. And of course, when she finds Louis, she can tell him too. So I tried to use my own voice, and a few people who've read the book have said they can hear me talking when they read Faye talking. So yeah, she is pretty much like me, especially in the things that she does and the things that she cooks and the stuff that she's got in her house. That's apart from Eddie. I don't have Eddie, but apart from that, I'm quite like Faye. So same job.
We'll talk about Eddie in a while. You know, you've already heard me say a few things about Eddie.
I know how you feel about Eddie. It's not the same as I feel about him.
Good for mankind, honestly, this chap. But one of the lovely parts of it, and I mean, I found the book just brilliant. He's very easy to read, but there were moments where I literally couldn't put it down. And I think the elements around the engagement ring, around serendipity, you know, I loved all of that, and meeting Elizabeth as well. You obviously created, I don't, you know, clearly we don't want to do too many spoilers as people who won't have read it yet. You've created a link between the 70s and the 2000s, or what do we call them these days? And did you realize that was important? Was that always a thought in the process of writing the book, or did all of that part of the storyline come later?
Well, it wasn't planned to happen, and it wasn't really something that came later. It was a very, very it was one of those decisions that turned on a very small point. So I'm not going to give anything away, but there was a point where she goes into a shop to get some roller skates, and originally I typed that she walked out of the shop with them. She just took them. And then I thought, no, I think this could be better if that doesn't happen. So I deleted that line and put her back in the shop. And all of a sudden, this character of Elizabeth grew. And I'm so glad it did. And I'm really glad you brought that up, Ben, because this is my favourite thread of the book, the whole Elizabeth thing. For me, it doesn't work without the Elizabeth thread. Because, you know, when you're writing a time travel story, which is not really what I intended to do. Time travel was a vehicle to tell a story about a woman being able to meet her mother. But there are consequences to time travel, and the Elizabeth story, I feel, worked as a consequence for me, as a different kind of consequence. Yeah, what would it be like if this happened to a person? So
I know. Yeah, I'm conscious we don't want to do any spoilers, but I love that whole kind of way, and the way it all fits together so beautifully. I did this morning. I was lucky enough to do some streamed events for schools with the author Ross Welford, and he's written a number of books. And he one of his early ones was about a time traveling hamster. So I mean, clearly, very different target audience, very different, but there's still the principle of time traveling. And I told him about tonight's event, and he submitted a question. Well, he sort of said, about the challenges of writing about time travel. Did you define the rules of time travel before you started, or did they form themselves as you wrote? I suppose that's a fair question. I'd add to that kind of the issue of Louis and how he was very methodical about the process. But what was your approach to time travel?
I think if I thought about it too much before I started, I might not have done it. If somebody had said, well, before you start writing about time travel, you're going to have to pick which theory of time travel you use. And this is so interesting because I've been looking recently at people who've been reading online in Staves, Space Hopper, and they keep saying things like, she can't meet herself as a young child, because if you meet yourself as a child when you are time traveling, it breaks all the rules of time traveling. And I want to say, time traveling doesn't exist, people. You don't that is not necessarily true, that you will mess everything up if you meet yourself as a child when you time travel, because that's just a rule that somebody brilliant once said, and it was a fantastic rule. I mean, it's in Back to the Future, isn't it? You mustn't catch sight of yourself. So I didn't bother with that. I just kind of wrote it, and it formed itself. And what I did without realizing it was I did fall into one theory of time travel, which is that you cannot change what has happened because it's already happened. And luckily for me, that fit quite well, and I didn't have to do too much tweaking to make that work. My God, was I relieved when I realized that a theory existed that basically says you can't go back. For example, you couldn't go back and kill your parents and then not exist, because you already exist. Yeah. So it doesn't get very scientific, but a few reviews have said it's just scientific enough to kind of satisfy, and I say geeks in the fondest possible way, but it's not too much to kind of put people off who don't really want to know too much science about it.
I know from previous interviews and things, I know there are people whose jobs are timeline expert or something, and they're involved in publishing, and there's some books where it's such a complicated storyline, and the Stuart Turton book, Seven Deaths of Evening Hardcastle, is a classic.
I haven't read that, but I really want to.
Yeah, which is basically the same day over, and it's kind of a Groundhog Day thing. Yeah. It's the same day over again, and so you have a timeline expert who then reviews every inch of the book down to the tiniest second.
What a job!
So you didn't. This is probably a question for Claire, who's going to join us 10 minutes from the end. You didn't have to use a timeline expert just in case, and get a sort of maybe a scientific perspective on this.
Well, as far as I know, there was, I had copy editors and I had editors looking at it, but I don't think that the time travel part is complicated enough to warrant it. I mean, do you? No. I mean, it to me, it felt, it was a fairly straightforward theory, but I am aware that when people, because of this thing that I was looking at with the comments coming through, where I could see the comments as they were reading it, I was aware that people thought that there was far more to the time travel issue than I let happen. My son, he's just turned 11, but so a few months ago when he was 10, he read it. He was obsessed with the time travel bit, and he came up with all these theories. And I just wanted to keep saying to him, the time travel is not really what this story is about. So there might have been a secret. What did you call it? Like a time. What did you call it? A time. Analysing whether the timeline works.
Oh yeah. Sorry, timeline.
If Simon and Schuster had someone looking at that, then they never mentioned anything. So I got it right first time.
No. So, but the expert you had in the book was Louis, and I love Louis. He was everyone. We all know a Louis, I think, somebody who's a little bit of a geek.
Oh, and I love Louis.
Do you? I guess one of the was there a reason why you made him blind? Was that kind of just to connect to the job, or was there a? Did you feel that he's likely to be less judgmental of Faye, perhaps, and think that she's a crackpot when it could? I'm feeling for a question there. What do you think?
Okay, well that's okay. I think I can pick a question out of that. That's nice. So there's the bit where Faye's doing her job and she's doing this experiment, And so I did those experiments, and I did the same experiment in real life with blind, partially sighted and sighted people. So what I did at one point is I just put Faye in a room with a colleague, with a friend, and it was Louis, and he was blind. And I think the reason I did that initially was because there are some really interesting things about blind people who have been blind from birth that sighted people never ever think about. So I don't think it's giving too much away. So for example, you've read it. So, you know, when he describes a bus, and he describes it as three horizontal lines and one vertical line. And then it explains why he thinks of certain things in certain ways. And I just wanted to get those into the book. But Louis evolved. Louis became, Louis is lovely. I don't think it's because of me. He sort of wrote himself. Having said that, I did base him on 2 or 3 people I worked with at RNIB. Like, you know how feisty he gets and irritable and like angry. I based him on somebody I knew at RNIB who was blind, who was brilliant and so much fun. So yeah, he's kind of based in reality. I didn't think I must have a blind character. There was a lot less planning to Space Hopper at the very beginning. I did not know Louis was going to be there at the beginning. Right. But I'm glad he was in the end.
Yeah, no, he's. I mean, there's a number of fantastic characters. Let's deal with Eddie.
Oh, well, he's not a fantastic character in your opinion.
You know, let's be honest. So I'm going to read my question here, which I did. So Eddie, on the other hand, dare I say, in what world does a perfect man exist like that, like him? I mean, I think
in this world up here.
I'm absolutely fine with time travel. No problem with that. I'm fine with daughters being older than mothers. I'm fine with a woman talking to their younger selves. I'm fine with the existence of God, to essentially. But Eddie, I mean, he's far-fetched. And what are your thoughts? I kind of understand the need to create the perfect relationship, because the fact that she is not being unfaithful, but she's got secrets from him in a relationship that's never had secrets, as it were. So I suppose you had to create a level of perfection, didn't you?
Well, let me start by saying, and I've just seen something come up from Kate Rizzo saying Eddie is lovely. Ben, I know you don't like Eddie, but I don't know many women who don't like Eddie. And I made Eddie because I could, because when you write a book and you want to write a man that you really like, you can sort of do what you like. And so I love Eddie, but I don't love him in the same way as I love Louis. I mean, I really love Eddie, right? So Eddie is not perfect, and they have a great relationship. Oh, here we go, Amy. Yeah, I fancy Eddie. Sexy vicars are always in fashion.
I'll be brutally honest, I fancy Eddie, so let's not.
Oh, I see. So we're really getting to the we're getting to the bottom, but not literally getting to the bottom, but I think we're just getting to the bottom. What's going on here? I think there's a little bit of envy going on here, Ben. And they, but part of the problem in the book is that she feels she cannot talk to Eddie. And Eddie does lose, there's a little bit where, now Eddie was originally perfect all the way through. But my agent, when she read it, she said, I think that at some point, she said, I think Eddie's being too patient. At some point he needs to, he needs to lose his rag. And so he does, he gets a bit grr at one point, doesn't he? That just makes him sexy. And he's a good guy. He is a good guy.
He's a very good guy. Yeah.
Don't forget that this book is set over about a 6-month period. So I'm sure Eddie, I'm sure he wasn't great all the time.
Yes.
Except he is kind of great, isn't he? You like him, really.
Yes. So let's go on to let's just feed a few questions. There's so many comments I probably need to have a read through. Hopefully I'm not seeing any questions. If you've got questions, put them in the Q&A bit, because that's nice and easy for me. Danielle Ballum, am I pronouncing that right? Danielle Ballum. How did you feel when Marian Keyes commented on Space Hopper?
Oh my God, I just felt amazing. I mean, Marian Keyes, just to have her comment was quite surreal. but also then I was told that she doesn't always comment that often, which just made me feel even better about it. But quite often with what's going on with this book, I do feel like I'm on the outside looking in. So when I see that, I think it's amazing. And then I'll be driving down the A14 and suddenly it'll hit me. Marian Keyes has actually sat up and read my book. That's what really gets to me. That when I'm just going about like doing the washing up or hoovering, somebody like Marian Keyes is reading my book and enjoying it. So that's pretty special.
Yes. Where were you when you saw the cover design? Let's start with a few. There are a few phases in the process of getting published, but you know, when you saw the artwork for the cover, describe that moment.
Oh, that was great. Well, when it was sent to me, that cover, there was another version where the skates were white, a bit like that, and there was just a little bit of discussion about which it should be, and I was a bit nervous because when the cover imagery comes through, you have such high expectations. You want to love it. You know that the people who are designing the cover are experts and they are designing something to make people pick it up. That doesn't necessarily mean that it will resonate with you as a writer. Doesn't necessarily mean that it will be the cover that you've kind of dreamed of, but they know that it will work. And I was really lucky because I also loved it. And so when I saw it, I felt like just elated, actually. And that orange, that kind of striking orange, it's a memorable thing. I mean, when I see that color orange now, all I can think of is the cover of my book. So yeah, I was really happy when I saw that.
That color that resonates space hopper, doesn't it? That's what
it does.
Isn't that the color of the space? I have to say, I'm colorblind, so I'm
Are you?
For me, that says space hopper to me.
Yeah, that is the color of space hopper. Somebody said, why isn't there a space hopper on the front rather than the roller skates? But of course, the roller skates do have or roller skates in general have an importance in the book. But somebody was mentioning in one review, it said something like, I think it's a good job that the space hopper isn't on the front because it's got quite a sinister face, the space hopper. It's a little bit scary. It's got horns. It's a bit devilish. So I like it because space hopper evokes the 70s and so do the roller skates. So I love that cover. And it's out in the US as Faye Far Away. So it's got a different name in the US. But they have also got a space hopper on their cover. It's like a blurry picture of a little girl on a space hopper. So they've done a little nod to space hopper. Okay.
And yet an actual space hopper, dare I say it, no spoilers, doesn't appear in the book. So clearly there's a space hopper somewhere in the family home.
There is a space hopper in the book, but it's mentioned very, very, very briefly.
Oh, I missed that.
No, it's when she goes to live with Em and Henry and she gets all her toys out. There's a space hopper in the corner of the room. But it is. I don't beat yourself up. It's easy to miss that bit. So it's mentioned very briefly, but it's all about the box. Yeah, we're not interested in the space hopper itself.
I mean, there's I love all the sort of little clever links, and I think the sort of using the roller skating as a sort of callback. So her love of the Faye as an adult, having her kind of almost dream moment going around skating. I'm not even going to do a spoiler. So I was about to do a spoiler, but I won't. I won't. Push. Kate Rizzo, lovely question. How does it feel now to see your book out in the world? I mean, have you been out in the world and seen it in shops? I mean, I received a pile of them this big, and I thought she's going to be chuffed to bits to see this. So I took a big photo of it and stuck it on Twitter because I thought this is a moment you're going to enjoy.
Oh my God! So I haven't really. I haven't been out into the world to look through a bookshop window. I might actually do that just as because I think I'm allowed to do that. Am I allowed to do that? So, but I must admit, Ben, and I think I might have commented on Twitter that when I saw my book in your bookshop, that was the first time I'd seen my book in a bookshop, and so that was one of the moments, one of the many moments that has been a monumental moment. That was one of them. Fantastic is how I felt. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'm glad I was there to help. Oh, here we go. Emma Tubey. Tubey.
Emma? No, it's Amy.
Oh, sorry, Amy Tubey. Eddie. Oh dear, I don't know if am I going to get my wrist slapped here. I'm wondering if you consciously decided to write such a happy marriage, or if it just happened. I'm familiar with a few authors who actually try very hard to illustrate happy marriages. Mary Robinette Cowell, and it's so rare in fiction. Why is that? P.S. My husband is nearly perfect too.
Oh, nearly.
Nearly
perfect.
but not
Everything
nearly
is in
as
that nearly.
not as perfect as Eddie then.
Oh well, I think okay. I did consciously write a happy marriage. I think that in a lot of fiction that I read, there are a lot of conflicted relationships. So you get unhappy marriages, you get people angry with each other all the time. Then the book becomes about, the anger and why is it there. So when you write something happy, people go, why is it so happy? That's weird. Why are they happy? Why is he such a good husband? That's not right. Well, we'd like it to be right, wouldn't we? We'd like, to have a husband who was like nearly perfect. So much as you'd like to have a wife or partner, I don't want to get like complicated here, but so I'll say this, right? When I wrote that book that I said came to nothing, the time before I wrote Space Hopper, and I had it evaluated, somebody said most of the characters are quite unlikable. And so when I wrote Space Hopper, I thought about my own life. And most of the people in my life are quirky, and funny, and charming, and interesting. And I think I'm lucky. But I've got a lot of good friends. Like a lot of them are here watching this tonight. And I really love them. And they're interesting, great people. And so that's what I wanted to have. And Eddie is one of those. They're not having a go at each other all the time. They're not, and I do know people who've got happy marriages. So I wanted nice relationships, and I consciously did it. And he is a bit perfect, but
lovely. I let's move on to Sarah Cole. What was the first thing you did after you signed the deal for Space Hopper? Was that an email you got?
No, it was a phone call.
It was a phone call.
So, when I knew that the deal had been, so my agent rang me to tell me the offers and to tell me that, and that was, we had to talk about, what decision to make. So hang on, what was the question? Where was
it? The first thing you did after you kind of...
the first thing I did. Well, I can tell you the first thing I did before it happened. So Judith told me that she would ring at 11 a.m. and she didn't ring until 12. By which point I was a nervous wreck and didn't know what to do with myself. So I emptied everything from the cupboard underneath my sink, which is just a horrible place where I open the door, throw something in and shut the door before everything falls out. So I took everything out and I went a bit OCD in the cupboard under the sink. And Sarah Cole's kitchen under the sink will be perfect every day, I can tell you that. But so afterwards, what did I do? I think I just rang a few people. I had, so I've got a flip chart, which I use whenever anything important's happening. So I had my chair and a flip chart and my telephone waiting for Judith, because I knew that when she spoke to me, I would be so excited I wouldn't remember what she'd said. So I jotted everything down. Straight afterwards, it was just phone calls, I think.
Brilliant.
But I can't think of anything else that I did. I didn't eat loads of stuff.
I asked to say, because I did a launch about a month ago for Fran Quinn, The Smallest Man, and I asked the same question to her, and the first thing she did was to do the catlit tray, which that's...
Yeah, I do remember somebody saying to me very shortly afterwards, as I was trying to, I'd like burned some rice in the bottom of a pan, and I was really trying to get it out, and they were saying, Helen Fisher, author, scrapes rice out of the bottom of a pan. I'm still cleaning my own toilets. It was like it felt like something massive had changed. And at the same time, you know, I was resenting cleaning out the cat litter tray a little bit, actually. Why am I still doing this?
That's it.
But it was, yeah.
You're too rock star now to be cleaning a pan. That's it.
I tell you what, before the deal, I was less happy cleaning out the cat litter tray than I was afterwards. I was much happier doing it afterwards.
Brilliant.
No, hang on, this isn't even true. No, forget the cat litter tray, because I promised my kids that if I got a publishing deal, I would buy a kitten. So there was no cat litter tray before the deal. It must have been something else I was doing.
Yeah. Okay. And we talked about earlier on when we had a little test of the Zoom and everything about at 3 o'clock. We talked about writing process, and you mentioned about your flip chart, which I thought, and I did say I wondered whether you'd be able to show something. Have you set one up?
Well, it's just behind me. I mean, I haven't set any. There is good, because all that's on there is. I mean, I've got lots of different things on there, but. Yeah,
can you show a bit more of it? We can only see a little clip.
Yeah. Basically, I just have to take my earplugs out while I
Okay, no, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. This is basically a chart with basically each one means 1,000 words. Each box means 1,000 words.
Okay. I've flipped this one over because it's more colourful and it's a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
You can see.
So describe this what we're looking at.
Okay, so. When I start writing a novel now, I make a grid of 80 squares. This is more than 80, but 80 is there. And I know that when I've written 80,000 words, that the end is in sight. Okay, so every time I write 1,000 words, I colour. Oh, no.
Wrong way. Towards you.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Carry on.
Every time I've written.
So every time you sit down and write 1,000
words, I colour it.
If you write as that first chunk you sat down and wrote was obviously 1,500 words, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So first day 1,500. So if you know what you're going to write, I mean, 1,000 words isn't actually that many words, but you've got to know what you're going to write. It doesn't mean you've got to write a good 1,000 words. It can't just be a crap 1,000 words. But I mean, you could.
Was that the one for Space Opera that we're looking at?
No. So this is something else. So but yeah, don't worry about what this is, because this is not the thing. But so as you can see, so what I would do is, because 1,000 words is not too many words. I don't know why I'm pointing. I'm practicing. So if I sit down to write, I give myself a task of 1,000 words, because that's not too many. So I don't beat myself up if I don't write anymore. But you can see those chunks there, like down here where I wrote 4,000. And you can see how I get a bit desperate towards the end. Like, I've got to get this thing finished. So yeah, it goes back to that whole Dr. O quote, where you can see a little bit ahead. You can't, nobody wants to sit down and write 80,000 words. It's just a hideous concept. But the idea of having a story to tell, and if you just say just 1,000 words at a time and I will get there, that's more doable, and that's why I do that. I recommend that to anybody, really.
So you kind of had you had an idea, the idea as a whole, and you set off writing it. I was lucky enough to interview Anne Cleves, and she has nothing. She knows nothing. When she wrote, she's a blank piece of paper. She starts writing it, and it kind of the book reveals itself to her at the same time it does to the reader, which I find extraordinary. How do you know you're going to write a book that's about 80,000 words? If it seems mind-boggling anyway.
But what's interesting, Ben, about that, and I'm in awe of that as well. And yet that's what I did with Space Hopper. But I find it difficult to do now. I'm too frightened to just get started now. And maybe that's what I need to do. I mean, I like to have a bit of a plan, because I mean, the whole driving home at night in the dark, you do like to know where you're going, don't you? I mean, when you're in the car, you want to know your destination. Otherwise, you don't want to be working out 3/4 of the way home. Oh, I think I'll go there, and it's 2 a.m. So I do like to know where I want to go now, but I'm wondering if that's a bit of a mistake, because I didn't do that with Space Hopper. So maybe I just need to have a rougher idea.
I guess these things come with more experience, and I think Anne Cleves obviously comes with a.
Oh, she knows what she's doing.
She comes with a chunk of that, but this was I wrote this one. You finished with what feels like a definitive ending.
Really?
Were you tempted to allow for a second book? I think I mean I left wanting to know way more about
Careful.
his mum. I really her what happened to her afterwards. I'm really itching to know more, and it feels like maybe there is a second book in some way, but I'm not going to say that. But were you tempted to sort of leave the room?
I didn't think about like what might come next, whether there was like a sequel to Space Hopper at the time. And something that I do feel quite proud of is that I think that Space Hopper is definitely a complete book that stands alone. But I do feel that when you come away from it, there are a lot of quite interesting philosophical questions that are left with the way that the book is left at the end. So, I often think about what would I be most interested in if I was a reader and I'd read it. What would I want to know about what happens next? And I suppose if I'm left feeling like that, then there's room for a sequel, I guess.
There is. I'm pleased to say. I mean, this is actually our book club book of the month as well, and everyone who bought the book off us and Helen has agreed to join us for our book club meeting in a month's time. And at that point, I think we can all talk openly about Jeannie and how the story extends from there. But right, I'm conscious that we've got probably 5 or 6 minutes, and I've missed. So let's do some questions. I've got a question from your dad. Hello,
Hi, Dad.
Norman. You know Norman.
I do know him. Yes, I know him well.
Met him once or twice. What is or what was a Morgan toy?
Oh, Magic Morgan. Now there were two. There was a little professor and a Magic Morgan. I think this is my dad's way of saying, don't complain that you didn't have one as a kid. I didn't even know what they were. Is that what he's saying? Magic Morgan was like a musical thing. So it was about this big. It was like slightly bigger than a pack of cards, and it had a face like a conductor's face. And I can't quite remember how it worked, but there was something musical about it. And then there was a little professor, which was more mathematical. So yeah.
I cannot remember.
You don't remember it? You'll have to Google them because they are.
I will do. Chrissy Heisman, have you been to Tring? That's an easy question.
Have I been to Tring?
Have you been to Tring?
No, I haven't been to Tring. But it's the Steel way of. I'd love to come to Tring, Ben. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Okay, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Yes, it'll obviously. It can't. Hopefully, fingers crossed. It's not far away, is it? It's not far away.
I hope not. Sarah Wyand, I can see on here, said like something like everybody wanted a Major Morgan. I'm glad I wasn't alone.
Everyone brilliant. Martin Eagles, do you like the US title? So I missed what you called the US title. What was the name?
Hello, Martin. Nice to see you here. The American title is Faye Far Away. So the far away bit is a reference to the magic faraway tree, which is mentioned in the book briefly. One of my sort of favourite books when I was a little girl growing up, where there's different lands at the top of a tree and you can go into these different worlds. The American market, I suppose, is very, very different. I absolutely love the cover of Faye Far Away. It's so different from Space Hopper. So, I mean, there's no comparing the two. I love them both. I'm very glad they've got a Space Hopper on the cover of Faye Far Away. And Space Hopper is what I called it from the very beginning. And Simon & Schuster were going to change it. We went through lots and lots and lots of changes because Americans are not familiar with the Space Hopper. It's not an iconic thing. So they wanted the same title across the pond. And so we thought, well, it can't be Space Hopper. But Space Hopper stuck in the UK. So we decided to keep it here and change it in the US.
So what is the box? What is the box that in the American one? What are they climbing into?
It's still a space Hopper, but I had to explain without making it look too much like I'm saying, by the way, for those who don't know, this is what a space hopper is. I just had to kind of explain within the text what a space hopper was, because they have something called a hoppity hop, but we can't call the book hoppity hop because that doesn't resonate anything for English people, and it doesn't actually resonate that much, I don't think, for Americans, because they know what it is, but it's still not an iconic 70s item in the same way that space hopper is. So, but to answer Martin's question, I love Faye Far Away. I love the cover. They're so different, they're almost incomparable. But
yeah. Amy Schiller, this is a nice question. Actually, it links with the question I'd had in mind. Love the theme of faith that runs throughout the book. Did you put this in deliberately, or did it just happen? And I would add to that the issue of faith is quite interesting, given the belief on whether time travel is possible and whether God exists. So you've got the two things that people would question whether either exists. So I mean, clearly you gave that a lot of thought.
That is one of the few things in the book that was very much done on purpose. So I have a few friends who are vicars, and in fact Eddie as well is the only person. There's the only thing within the book that I actually researched. So I've got a friend who has gone from being in finance. It's a woman. She's gone from being in finance to being a vicar, and so I met with her and asked her about her calling. And so her experience of her calling is Eddie's experience. And I was really fascinated by the idea of somebody with a really strong faith living with somebody who didn't believe in God, but had a secret that required somebody to have faith in her. And that was very much done on purpose. And actually it was something that I tried to be most careful about. And Amy is like my oldest, bestest friend, and she's one of my beta readers. And she said when she finished the book, she said that she felt that this was a long time ago, but she said something like, you can't tell whether the author believes in God or not, and it also doesn't matter. So she said she'd felt that faith had been dealt with very well from that point of view, and I felt proud of that. So I was pleased.
Yes, a great answer. I'm just rattling through. There's a few other questions after. There's quite a few of you who are sort of asking the same sort of questions. Mike, I think we've answered yours. Margaret, yes. Sarah Cole, it is perfect. I'm trying to remember what the hell I was talking about, but never mind. Susan, will there be a sequel? I think we know there's not. Nicola.
Hey, hang on. No. I think we know there's not. I'd like to write one day.
Oh, okay.
I would like to write one. Yeah. I would like to write one day. I'd like to explore what happens after.
Wow. Okay.
Did you not get that?
I shouldn't jump to conclusions, should I? Sorry, that's my mistake. Wow, I love that idea.
Really?
Why can't that be the next book? But anyway, we'll ask you what the next book is in a second. How, Nicola Powling, how many novels have you written? I think we know.
No, you don't know how many novels I've written.
How many novels have you written?
I've written 4.
4.
Yeah. 4. Because to be honest with you, Ben, if I had written one and it had got published, and then I wrote another one and that got published too, right at the very beginning, I'd be very unusual, and other writers would hate me too, because it's not easy. You write and it's a struggle, and you don't get it right every time. So you know that I wrote one before Space Hopper that never really came to anything, but it was still a novel. It was still finished. So yeah, I have written 4. Good question.
51 minutes. Claire will be arriving in a second, but let's. I've got about 4 or 5 questions.
Okay.
Let's
I'll go quickly.
rattle through these. You have this is Louise Powell. You have a 2-book deal. How are you getting on with your second book? Any sneak preview of what it's about?
No sneak previews, but I have. I'm working on something at the moment, and what I'm trying to do is trying to write something that gives readers the same feeling as Space Hopper without being the same book, and it's very, very difficult. So yes, I do have ideas. I have written some stuff, but it's quite complicated.
Does it have time travel as well?
No time travel, but in the same way that time travel isn't really the center of the book, but it's like a magical element that kind of there's a magical element, I suppose, if you want to put it that way.
You have to say, I was midway through the book and I was thinking, oh, what would I do in this scenario? And, I kind of made a mental note, go down the bookies.
Make some money.
On the horses then, but you're in the 70s, you've made a load of money. What do you do with it? Because you want to go home. And you can't take it home. So did you give these sort of things that I gave thought? Did you give those any thought?
I gave them about as much thought as it took you to just say that. Because it was the same issue.
I'd love to. The problem is you clearly have to put it into some sort of building society, knowing that it would be there in 30 years' time, and you'd have to sort of bury the cards. I've given it some thought, honestly. So that's
it was too difficult. It's actually too difficult to do logistically when you haven't got much time. Yeah.
Anyway, Dora Rano Hall.
Used to work with Dora.
So have you got slot ideas for books as we speak?
Slot. That's a typo.
A lot of ideas.
Oh, lots of ideas. I do get ideas, and then I sort of grow them and jot them down. I wouldn't say a lot, but I'd say I've probably got 2 or 3 ideas. Yeah, and I try to grow them and work on them. They take on a life of their own.
Great question from Vivian James.
Vivian. Hello, Vivian.
Do you think it should be made? Do you think it should be made in film? Of course, it should be made in
film.
I think it would be. I think it would work really well. Maybe as a TV kind of adaptation, some sort of TV film. But is there any interest? Do you know?
Not as far as I know, but I'm. A lot of people and a lot of reviews say that they can see it, and I don't think I'm being immodest, but I can see this actually working quite well as something visual. Because it's not it's not lots of stuff going on inside someone's head only. There are quite a lot of moments that would look good on screen. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
I totally agree. And actually, it doesn't strike me as a particularly expensive film to make. It's not like set on a galleon somewhere or whatever.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's not set in space, is it?
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Amy Tubey put, we do not have space operas in the US. They are called something else. So I don't know what that is.
Yeah, no, she's right. Absolutely. Yeah.
Very good. Marcella Cooper. Now, I think Marcella deserves a bit of a shout out, doesn't she?
She does, Marcella.
She sent me a question. Which is your favourite review of the novel Space Hopper?
Well, I've had quite a lot of reviews, so I've been really lucky with that. My favourite, any good review is great. There was one review that actually mentioned why Faye gets into the box in the first place. And I remember reading that review and thinking, oh, thank God someone's mentioned that, because nobody seems to say, why would a grown woman get into a box in the first place and end up finding out that it's a portal to the 1970s? What on earth would make you stand in a box? So this one review that was a great review actually mentioned that she goes up into the attic and she smashes a light bulb with her head, and there's glass all over the place, and she steps into the box because she's barefooted. She steps into the box to protect her feet. And so actually one of my favorite reviews was that one, because I thought, oh, thank you for mentioning it, because it just seems like an unasked question by a lot of reviewers. Yeah.
I know, and I think...
And Marcella does deserve a shout-out. Sorry to interrupt you, Ben.
Yeah.
May I?
You may, go for it. Let's talk about Marcella.
Okay, so when I started wanting to write books, when my life took a different turn, and I was going through a divorce, and I lost my job, and I was working in a coffee shop, and me and Marcella worked together. And I think it's fair to say I was probably at my lowest ebb then, and I can remember being in the coffee shop and saying, I wish I could be an author. And she was going, I wish I could be an artist. Now, she was an artist because she'd already trained, but I think she wanted to be like a full-time artist. And 5 years later, I'm an author and she's a full-time artist. And she is just, I love her work so much. And she knows I love her work because I've bought quite a few pieces from her. And I've also commissioned a piece from her, which she did for me. And her website is mentioned on my website. So yeah, I just love her. And it feels like we kind of we sort of went on a journey. And when I met her once and I told her the story of Space Hopper in a coffee shop, and she cried, which I was like, happy but not happy about. So that was a lovely moment.
Brilliant. That's
Good
lovely.
memories with her.
I love Marcella. She sounds great. In fact, let's go back to the Wendy Portway sent an email.
Wendy.
Do you know when the next book will be out?
No, I don't exactly. It really depends on what happens. So if things happen quickly enough, it could be, I guess it could be like 1 year away, but it really depends on, what happens with the next book, what's thought of it and how much work it needs done after the first draft. So I'd like to think it would be a year, but maybe it will be 2. So I don't know. I'm such an impatient person, but in this business, I have to start thinking a bit longer term. Yeah.
I've been reprimanded by Lisa Hassler. Ben, of course there will be a sequel. You know. Today.
Thanks, Lisa. If Lisa says there will, to be honest, she's like the magic 8 ball. If Lisa says there will be a sequel, then there will be. I'll get on it now. I've got to go. I'll write my sequel.
Brilliant. And Julie Harris, she's one of my customers at the shop. Excellent book, really enjoyable read. Did you consider alternative endings? The ending was unexpected and brilliant.
Yeah, well, as I was saying earlier, it was kind of unexpected to me until about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through. So I was floundering a little bit with where it was going to go. And I think originally I was thinking that it would just be, it would just come to a sort of natural, softer end. Without wishing to give anything away, I don't think it does that now. It's much more. I like to think that you get a surprise at the end, but that if you look back, it was always going to happen. Yeah. And in fact, when the ending happened, and I looked back, I didn't tweak to make it happen. It was the book already knew what was going to happen. I think, which I know sounds really mumbo jumbo-ish, but that's the truth.
Yeah. Claire, if you're out there, do join us. I'm just looking at so many lovely comments about.
What's going on with your background?
You've got space hoppers.
I've got space hoppers.
Who's the man with the cone?
I've got kids with like in the 70s. Like I feel like this like encapsulates the 70s, maybe.
Yeah, you've done well there. I'm loving the cone on the head.
The cone on the head. Yes, of course it does.
It distracts from the space hopper, actually.
There's been a load of comments that I missed all about Major Morgan.
Major Morgan.
Jodie Weston. I loved Major Morgan.
I remember Jodie having one.
Found one shop in Newmarket a couple of years ago. How exciting is that?
Oh, that is exciting. I remember Jodie having one. I think I went to her house and wished that she's lucky she's still got it.
So listen, I'm going to, we have essentially run over, but we're going to just run over a few minutes so that Claire can say a few words and Helen say a few words at the end. But Claire, obviously, I mean, you're from Simon & Schuster. Do say a few words.
Hello everyone, thank you for having me on, Ben. I always think it's really nice on publication day to, if we were all standing in a hot bookshop, standing around in a circle with warm glasses of white wine in our hands, we would have a moment where we marked this moment and marked the very special occasion of publication of your book, Helen. And so I wanted to take a moment to do that very quickly and just to say, that there are so many leaps of faith in the whole process of this. You took a leap of faith of writing the book, of submitting it to all of those agents and to that last one, most important submission to Judith. And then, and every publisher, whenever they make an offer on a book, there's a leap of faith there and a leap of faith back from the author to say, well, I'm going to hitch my wagon to these publishers and I'm going to join with you and we're going to take this book to readers who will hopefully love it. And of course, for booksellers and for readers, there's that leap of faith of, am I going to part with my cash for this book? And I can't think of a leap of faith that any of us at Simon & Schuster would have wanted to take more. It's been the most joyous leap we've ever taken. And it's been, such a special journey for us. And I hope it will be as special for the readers who take that leap when they leap into the pages. And I think that, you know, because at the heart of it, we've talked a lot about the time travel and all of those elements, but really, I think at the heart of this book is a human story, and it's about the human emotions. And like you say, it's not about the space hopping necessarily. It's about the human connections, and about that idea of what would you do if you could meet someone that you had lost again. And I think that is the thing that speaks to the heart of all of us when we read that book, and that feeling we get. And certainly for everyone at Simon & Schuster, when we shared our photographs of us with our mums right at the beginning, and we've done that throughout the process, I think that, you know, that's the thing that's so special about this book. So I just wanted to say thank you, Helen, for writing it and for taking the leap of faith on us and with us, and it's been the most fun. And thank you, Ben, for hosting the launch party, and thank you to all of the readers who are going to leap into the pages of the book and discover the joy. So I just wanted to raise a virtual glass and to say cheers to you, and I hope that
a real one, but
and congratulations, and it's a massive achievement, and here's to all the other leaps we're going to take together.
Thank you so much, Claire. I can't thank Simon & Schuster enough, actually. You have not just you, Claire, you've been brilliant. There's such a great team behind you, and I have felt really supported and really loved. You can't have all liked it, surely, but I just, you know, you have all been so brilliant, and yeah, I couldn't have. I'm totally the right publisher to go with. I wouldn't change a thing. You were just brilliant. So thank you. Thank you for getting me where I am. I appreciate it.
Oh, that's
all. Loving. I know.
Helen.
Helen, would you like to say any thank yous to sort of other people who've been involved in the journey? And I did read. I've got to mention this because it made me laugh, actually. I think it was Sarah Gillespie who she helped you create the character of Eddie.
Yes.
I need to have a word with Sarah. Josh. Anyway, do you want to say a few thank yous to, you know, everyone involved in the kind of your process?
Well, everyone at Simon & Schuster, and absolutely brilliant on the marketing team, and Richard Bleistra, who has just been so supportive over the summer during some really, really difficult times for me, and just made me laugh and kept my spirits up. He was great. And my friends Amy and Adam Schiller, who have supported me from the get-go. And when I was saying this will never be published and nobody wants me, Adam was going, you know, I'll help you self-publish. And I was like, I don't know how to do it. And he said, I will do it for you. So, and they've always been right behind me. Marcella, of course. I actually think that most people have been mentioned. Sarah Wyand, who was, you know, this crazy great relationship that I have with my ex-husband's fiance, and who we're going to go and like down a few of these afterwards. I'm so glad she's here. But all my friends who have come tonight, Viv and Dora and Nikki and everyone and Jenny Murphy. Oh, there's just everyone has been lovely. So lovely. I'm really, really, I wish we were all in person. I'm very, very happy that
it would be nice. It would be nice. We wouldn't all be in our slippers though, so it would be a very different world. So
yeah, I've got some really thick socks on. So
I've brand new socks on today, actually.
Let's have a look, Ben.
My feet are cozy.
I'll show you my socks if you show me yours.
Can I thank everybody who joined us for the event? Can I thank everyone who's questioned? I've picked up as many questions as I could and comments and stuff. You've all been really brilliant. There's a massive amount of love for Helen and this book. So just big thank you, and let's big up to Helen. Let's have her back. Let's have Faye back at some time very soon.
Yeah, but not Eddie.
Let's have a divorce, and then let's find somebody else who's got tarnished edges. I don't know.
Okay, all right.
Brilliant, guys. Now I sent you the link for the green room. I don't know if you want to join me there. So, but okay. Thank you all again, and we'll see you for another event. We've got plenty of events coming. I've got 2 next week, so do look at tringbookfestival.co.uk for further events we're doing. And I'm launching. That's the next launch. That's The Last Bear with Hannah Gold, which is going to be a beautiful event. And our next book of the month is Simon Mayo. I'll be into launching that book in the beginning of March, and he's joining our book club meeting as well. And in a month's time, Helen's going to be joining our book club meeting. So thank you all. I'll stop rabbiting, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ben. Thanks, Claire.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers.